Right, good morning, class. I hope you're doing well. A quick acknowledgement, if in case you can hear me. If you can acknowledge and let me know if you can hear me. Right, thank you, Arshid. Good morning, everyone. It's Navjot Singh Jadeja. I'm gonna take today's lecture because I think Sham sir is having some issues related to the internet. And we have taken this lecture. I told you earlier. We did give about dynamic memory allocation earlier when the examinations were to be conducted for the MU students. But there was a quick revision, and today will be going through the same topics completely again. All right. So we are talking on dynamic memory allocations. We have till now talked about pointers and a lot of other important topic. And similarly, dynamic memory allocation is a very important concept in terms of C programming. If you were to talk about features of C, then dynamic memory allocation is one of the very important topics. Alright, I am giving some time for people to sign in quickly and complete the attendance process. I won't be considering any attendance post 10:30. So I'm giving you 5 7 minutes to quickly type in your attendance, and then later on I will not consider any attendance after 10:30. So please make sure after that you are focusing on the discussion related to the classes which I'm teaching, and then ultimately we will discuss some very good concepts of C programming. So I'm giving you 5 minutes or something quickly to join in. Everybody, please join in. Alright, guys, quickly join in. And you are supposed to lecture completely and not leave after writing the attendance, guys. I'm taking this very seriously. We have had a talk with the head of the department, and that is why we are discussing while the lecture is going on. So please make sure all of you are attending. Okay, let's start. So topic today is dynamic memory allocation. So let us understand first how the variables are declared. So if you remember the syntax, we have the data type and the name of the variable, and as we have seen in the pointers, there is a memory block which is assigned, and we are storing the memory according to that block. And because this is integer, we have fixed size which is 2 bytes, and we store the value. If the same variable is float, then we have a block which is of 4 bytes. I think this is something which all of you have understood via pointers now very clearly. Any this, please comment into the comment section. All right. So this is what the block of memory looks like. Now, if we are to remember array memory allocation, right? So what happens in array? We have a data type, and we have the name of the array and the size of the array, and this is how the blocks are contiguous blocks. If you remember, array is working on contiguous block. Contiguous means at each separate regular intervals. So if it is every 2 byte, if it is float every 4 byte, so continuous allocation is there. And when we enter the values in this, basically whether we enter or not, because this is static memory allocation, it stores the data, or it regulates the bytes before the entry of the variable. And this, as I said, is known as static. Whether we are inserting the value or we are not inserting the value, this memory will be occupied. So this is known as static memory allocation. But there are issues that we need to understand with static memory allocation, and issues are that when we have a program like this, we have a roll number which is having the capacity to store 10, and then we are only entering few values there. Like this is the memory allocation, as you can see it below the program, that the memory which will be occupied and named for roll number. So as soon as we do it, it expects you to store all the number of values. But considering that I only decided to enter 3 values, alright. So my loop will run for 3 iterations, and I enter 10, 15. So what would happen is, in the background, we will have only 3 values stored in the array. Now what is the problem with this tree storage? That when we say we are only storing limited values in the array, though the array size is bigger, there is a amount of blocks which will be wasted. So now what happens is, there will be lot of memory which will be wasted when array size is bigger and we have less amount of data stored in that array. Alright. So this is something very crucial. Also, if you understand, forget the C programming, in general also, going back to the block diagram, the costliest component which we have in our computer is actually memory. Because if you see, with all the storage which you have, which is 500 GB or 1 TB, and people are increasing their storage, still it is still an issue where RAM and storage are getting full, whereas your processor is still good enough to perform so many operations. So wastage of a memory is not something good as far as cost is concerned, or also as far as programming paradigm are concerned. Alright. So let us understand that we have this next array where we are actually putting up 60. Now the problem is, in the earlier case which you see in here, so we have wastage of memory. There could be a next program where we need to enter 60 students data, but now there is the memory which is enough. So if you understand, if you keep on creating programs with a very large static memory allocation, then there is a chance that your program would lack memory for the further executions. Alright. So what do we do? What do we come up as in the solution? And the solution to the problem of static memory allocation is that we cannot change the size, so we need to have dynamic memory allocation. What is dynamic memory allocation? It's like your live classroom which is happening here right now, where instead of 1, 2, 15, 20 fixed classroom strength, we are allowing as many as students as possible. So right now, out of the 5 class, we have 55 students watching. All right. So basically, a lot of people come here, put in their attendance, and are leaving. Right. So how do we get the memory? It is dynamic. Somebody tell me quickly in the comment section, what are the examples which you know where dynamic memory is actually happening, or any scenario, real time scenario, where dynamically we allocate the space, may it be programming or something else, whatever it is. Can you quickly type in just to check if you guys are here or not? What are the scenarios where dynamic allocation happens of memory or of anything else also? I'm waiting your replies, guys. And that's why I told you today onwards, we will be making sure that interacting, those who are interacting and are there in the lecture will only be considered, not people writing the numbers and leaving. So give us a scenario where you are having dynamic allocation of the space. It could be real time scenario or it can be a computer based scenario. Okay, Path, how do you explain in shopping malls? Okay, sitting arrangement in the examination is static, Ria, where we have allocated the space predefined. Answers, guys, I am going to discuss this in detail because it is very important you understand what we are discussing. So do not write one word like random motion or shopping malls. Elaborate, explain so that we can discuss it well. Okay, counting of participants, yes, correct. Error during runtime, okay, that can be a case. Alright, Ramesh, you are right on that. So that is why we use the runtime memory allocation. Naimesh, please elaborate. Cricket match or any match? Because in the stadium, you are given the tickets as per the seat. It's not, open-ended or random. It is specific to the location. Any further more examples? Okay. Sujit, this is the link where right now 60 students are attending. So I think you need to check your internet because you have also joined in here. Okay, you're writing on somebody else's behalf. Jai Shankar Kumar. I think if you are 62 people able to attend, I think other people can show. Alright, any other examples? Quickly, guys. Okay, yes, Path, your example is correct. In the shopping mall, we can have more and more people. Okay, Ria is saying, but it's not predefined, and if it's like that, those who enter the first seat will first and okay. It is predefined, and locations are based on your roll numbers. In your example, it is based on roll number, not the first come first serve. So again, it is allocated based on the location. Yes, public in the market. All right. So I think now many of the people are understanding what I mean by dynamic memory allocation, right? So if you are understanding this, please write down the definition I'm giving you right now about the dynamic memory allocation. So here I have pasted a definition for you guys. That's the definition which I want you to understand and write it down. C, dynamic memory allocation can be defined as the procedure in which the size of a data structure like array is changed during the runtime. Alright. So there are certain words you need to understand in the definition. That dynamic memory is the procedure where size of the data structure. When I say data structure, even if you remember array, I told you memory allocation and similar concepts are very important for computer science and IT students, because ultimately when I talk about this, you need to remember that next semester there is an important subject which is data structures, and in the further semester there is another important subject which is algorithms. So if you don't understand dynamic memory, you won't understand how the memory happens, allocation happens in the background, and how that actually affects in the access speed and also the algorithm. Alright. So you need to understand that this is how dynamic memory allocation happens, that there are four different commands which we use in order to apply the dynamic memory allocation. One is Malloc, second is Calloc, third is realloc, and fourth is free. So basically Malloc is known as memory allocation method, alright, which dynamically allocates a large block of memory with a specific size. Next up is, as I said, is a Calloc. So when Calloc, it means contiguous allocation, and I'm not saying continuous, I'm saying contiguous, which is contiguous allocation, which is a method which again dynamically allocates the block of memory, but it does two things. It is in continuous order, and second is in initialized with the value 0. Alright, so that is Calloc. Realloc is when you are freeing up the memory, when you have freed up the memory and you want the reallocation. So realloc is the method in C to dynamically change the memory allocation of previously allocated memory. So don't worry, I am just giving you an idea. I will be going through each topic very simply in this lecture itself. So don't worry if you are not understanding anything, you can always play back and forward and do this. And final method is free method. So free method is used to dynamically deallocate the memory. So when we are allocating, we also need to free up the memory, and we use free is the method, inbuilt method, to remove that storage. Alright. So these are the four important functions. If you talk about the GTU examination, then these are very important ones. If you talk about the Viva, they are very important, and more importantly, as I said, if you want to be a good programmer, these are all needed where it is required. Alright, so we will go one step at a time in each of the function. First is memory allocation or Malloc. So Malloc function is used to allocate memory blocks at alright. So this is the definition of the method or a function where we are using dynamic allocation or the runtime allocation of the block. Is it clear? And this is the header file which you require in order to include the dynamic allocation functionality. Just like stdio.h, conio.h, and any other functions which you header files which you use, even like math.h, including a malloc method or a function, we need to have std library, which is standard lib.h, included in the program. right? So can we quickly check again which are the four types of memory allocation functions allowed in the C, or which are the DMA, dynamic memory allocation methods in C? Quickly type in the comment. Four methods which we discussed in the earlier slide. Just asking 5 minutes back. Quickly type. Yes, guys, quickly type in the four methods we discussed in the earlier slide, just to check in if you guys are attentive. So should I consider out of a class of 70 only few are listening? Alright, go ahead, good. Kel is not a function, Calloc is, kindly check it. Alright, he understood this. Wonderful. So let's move further in the Malloc. I think most of you are attentive right now in the class. Further, Malloc is a function which is used to allocate the memory as the runtime, and we need to add standard library.h header file in order to use Malloc function inside the program. And the prototype of the function. So how do we write the function prototype? So function prototype is void star malloc and integer size, right? Where we define the size of the variable. How do we use it using a pointer? So pointer is pointing to the malloc where we define the size in the bytes in here, right? And we store the value in the PTR. So we'll see this in the program, so you'll understand how to use it. So we move further. Example, let's see an example. So this we have declared an array. Again, as I said, in a dynamic structure like array or a data structure like array, we can use the memory functions. Otherwise, in the simple memory allocation, we can always use the pointers and other ways to point to the memory. But there is no dynamic allocation required because it is only one value declared there. So now we have an array which is roll number of size 6. We have a pointer variable declared and we have a malloc function again similar to the size 6, right? Again, because this is an integer, we will have integer star in here. So if you understand step by step procedure, let me go through that again. We have roll number integer 6. So we declare an integer star pointer. We declare a malloc function with the same size as the roll number. Then we declare integer star because we have it in integer form, and we store it into PTR, which is declared here, right? This is how we complete the part of malloc. So based on the roll numbers size 6, we have the malloc function which has allocated 6 memory, right, 12 bytes, whereas malloc allocates only 6 bytes. So if we need more, we can add up more. So you understand the difference. Here we are not allocating all 12 bytes. I only needed 6 bytes, so I allocated only 6, though the original roll number had 12 bytes. So this is the advantage, and this can be modified every time the program runs. So if I need 12, I can 12. If I need 10, I can declare 10. So this saves memory and optimizes the memory usage. Alright. So this is the number of bytes we are defining, not the number of variables. If you understand, here it is number of variables, here it is number of bytes, and this is the pointer variable which is pointing. Now I change this to 12. So ultimately, using this malloc 12, it will occupy 12 bytes, just like in here also. Is it clear, everyone? Are you understanding? Yes, Meet, let me go back to the earlier part. Let's explain you quickly. So I have this example in here where I have declared integer roll number 6. Alright. The size of the roll number array is 6, and because it is declared in integer, you know that it has 12 bytes. 6 into 2 per integer variable. Alright. Now I am declaring an integer star pointer, which is the declaration to a pointer, and I am declaring a malloc function with the size 6. So size 6 in here means the number of bytes. I am not talking about number of variables, I am saying number of bytes. So when I am declaring that variable with the style and the size 6 into pointer, the initial roll number 6 will actually allocate 12 bytes, whereas the malloc will only allocate 6 bytes. Because this is the use which I want, that means I need to control the memory, not the memory getting controlled by the program. So I need 6 bytes to store only 3 variables, I'll keep only 6. If I want 6 variables and 12 bytes, I can do this, which I have done in the program where I am changing the program to 12. So now once I change it to 12 bytes, ultimately if you can see properly, it occupies 12 bytes. So this is dynamic. When the program runs, it decides how much memory the variable would need instead of static memory allocation. Alright. So this is how it will be occupied, and again remember this, because this is an array, it will be contiguous allocation for the memory. Addresses will be contiguous. So if you see 102, 103, 102, 104 and like that, so it's a jump of 2. Why? Because it is integer, right? So you need to remember that it will be contiguous allocation and at a jump of 2 because it is integer. So basically that you need to remember again. Malloc is a method in C to dynamically allocate a single large block of memory with a specified size. Second thing, it returns a pointer of type void which can be cast into pointer of any form. So that is what we are doing. We are converting it into a pointer casting and we are storing the value, right? So that's how malloc happens. So what I would suggest is, write down, if you are having some notes next to you, practice programs related to malloc in code tantra as well as code blocks. So you will understand what I am saying. Take up simple example and do it. Alright. And if you understand what is the background process, we have a pointer where storing the first address and then ultimately it stores the rest of the address. So what this shows is, yes Arman, why jump of 2? Because integer occupies 2 bytes. So ultimately the next byte will be occupied by this integer itself. So that is why it will jump to 2 every time. So 2 bytes, if it is float, it will have a jump of 4. 100, 104, 100, 108 and like that. Alright. So depending on the type of variable which we are allocating the memory, it will have the memory addresses. And in the pointer, it will store the first address. So this question you should have been asking, but I am telling you upfrontly, what would be stored in the pointer? The pointer of the malloc will store the address of the array. Alright. So remember this. Every time there is a question, and this can be again asked in interviews or in the examination or viva, what is stored in the pointer of the array? Then it will store the first address itself. Then ultimately it knows how many variables are there and what type of, so it will know up to what level it has to go in the memory. So let us see a complete program. So instead of declaration at the starting in the form of an array, so we have integer I, which is the looping, the pointer variable and allocation of 12 bytes. We are using the looping variable to run for 6 different locations, because if you remember, ultimately 12 bytes is 6 location in integer, because every integer variable will occupy 2 bytes. Now what are we doing? We are storing and incrementing the pointer from 100 to 102, from 102 to 104. So here what is happening? The address variables are getting incremented as per the loop. When I am saying I is the value which is the pointer value. Alright. So this is the program which will actually store the values into the memory using the malloc. Will store it like this, which actually can be seen in here. So is it clear everyone till now this program, what is happening in this program and what the basic part is? And if you are still facing that, because sometimes people like to visualize the things, programming like that. So what I would suggest is, if in case you are not understanding this video is there, this PPTs will be shared, so you can practice this program, write it into your you know this code editors of code tantra, or even you can write it in the code blocks as I said, or even any online code editor, and you further and seeing what the results are. Now same value when I print, I need instead of scanf I need printf, and only thing is I am pointing to the star, because now I am printing the values. Here I was incrementing the pointer, so it was not star ptr. If you remember the pointer concept, remember star ptr will actually give me the pointer, sorry, the value, and ptr will give me the address. So please remember this concepts very clearly. More and more you go into the depth, you might get confused. So practice, practice and practice will only be your solution. Okay. And once I do this, the output screen would the values which are in here return into the output screen. So this is the basic program for the malloc. I hope this is clear for you guys, so that we can understand that here we are incrementing I by 1 and malloc is 12, so it is 6 locations. Alright. There is another example which I have. Instead of using the values in here, I am actually asking the program to provide me runtime value of the numbers of elements here. So what I'm doing is I'm asking the number of elements in here, and because this is integer, I am multiplying the memory location by 2 and then allocating the memory. Rest of the program remains the same. So what happens here? Again, memory allocation is pure dynamic. Instead of malloc allocating the memory in the program, now this will be allocated based on user input, as in the n. Let's say I would insert n is equal to 5. Then what would be the total number of memory allocated? Can you quickly type in? If n is 5 program, how many memory blocks will be allocated? If n is equal to 5, how many memory blocks will be allocated? That's the question, guys. Let's see if you understand. Alright, few people are saying 10, student is saying 5. Okay. Okay, guys, the blocks will be 5. So people who are getting the answer 5 are correct. Number of blocks will be 5, and total number of bytes will be 10. So those who are writing are understanding it correct, but you did not understood my question. Total number of blocks will be 5 and total number of bytes will be 10. So please understand the question. Do not see the replies given by others. Otherwise, you may confuse yourself. Right? So let us see this. So let's say this is something which I am inserting as 5. Then n by 2 will be the total number of memory bytes. But the blocks will be 5. So let's say I am inserting 4 as in the input. So what is happening? There are 4 blocks with the addresses of up to 8 bytes. So the first address is 210. So the next byte address is 212, 214 and 216. And if I am inserting the values based on the scanf, as in the 4 this 20, 34, 54 and 11, then it will be stored as this. When the code comes to the printf, which is this part, it will display what I have stored in the value, which is again 20, 54 and 11. So is it clear, guys? I hope you understand what I'm trying to convey in here, because I'm making sure you understand. That is why I'm trying to go a little slower. I hope you are understanding what we are going in terms of dynamic memory allocation. Alright. So let's move further. This is the same thing. N into 2. If you are using a new machine, because many of the people in the earlier lectures have also asked me this very question, that sir, in my machine it is showing the addresses in 4 bytes. So guys, newer computers or the newer editors or even online editors, one of the lectures when Dr. Gaurav Shrivastava was taking lecture into the dynamic programming, I think, or some other programs where he was using an online editor. Even that day we were discussing that online editors use different mechanism. So same way, sometimes the editors allocate, the online editors allocate 4 bytes. Some newer machines are allocating 4 bytes. So the same thing will be changed to 4. Alright. So that is something which you need to understand what your machine does. That you can easily check by writing a simple program for or even how to print the data size, and you will come to know what is the amount of byte using an address of operator, that how much bytes are occupied. So based on that you can multiply in here, like yes, size of operator will tell you, as I said, right? You write size of int and write a small program, it will tell you whether your computer allocates bytes or the 4 bytes. Is it clear, everyone? Has anybody faced this problem in terms of different size of variables in their systems? While they are programming, they would have realized that your machine or my machine is a different size of the variable in the memory. Has anybody faced this? Okay, are you guys there? I'm asking a question. Has anybody faced similar problems? Alright, I'm not sure if you're getting my voice. Can you hear me, guys? Okay, nobody has faced it. Come on, good. Nice people are replying now. Alright, so let's move further in terms of checking it. So if you are having a size of operator program, you can easily check in your program system whether you have the issues or not. If you are not facing, wonderful. If you are facing, we can modify the program like this. So whatever the size of int is coming, we can replace it into the program. So if you can see it here where my mouse is, this program I have modified into the third level. First modification was in the malloc function, we were giving the number of the bytes. Then we modified into n into number of bytes. Then the third modification is based on the size of integer whichever is coming in your system. Directly it will multiply that value. So if it is 4, it will occupy 4. If it is 2, it will occupy 2. So this way you can solve that error and still the same program can be used. Alright. So now next up we are talking on contiguous allocation of memory or Calloc. Right. So Calloc function is used to allocate multiple memory blocks at the runtime, and again as I said it is known as contiguous allocation. Right. So it's another form of allocating memory blocks of the specified time. And one thing which you need to remember is it initializes each block with the default value 0. So please remember when I talk about Calloc or anytime somebody asks you, you need to remember that default value once you initialize with Calloc is 0. Again, similarly to Malloc, we need to use the standard lib.h or lib.h file in order to use the library function which is Calloc. Is different where we declare void star Calloc and we declare the integer element as well as integer element size. Alright, we will see this with example for you to understand well. And usage form is we declare n and size. So remember in Malloc we were only giving the size. Here we are giving the number of elements and the size. So that's the difference from the earlier function Malloc. Let us see the example which we have used in here. I hope everybody is understanding what we are doing in terms of the programming and usage. If there is any doubt, please let me know very quickly, then only we will go further. Is there any doubt on your part regarding this? Meet pointer is the variable which will return the address, whereas star pointer will return the value. If you have doubt, refer the pointer lecture on the channel. I have mentioned that, so you will understand that PTR is returning an address of that variable, whereas star PTR refer to the value on that pointer. Alright. Okay, let us discuss some differences before we move further in terms of Calloc. Alright, I think Bajrang, you want me to repeat the difference between the pointer and star PTR? Bajrang, can you just specify the question? Okay, repeat Calloc one time. Alright, we will do it. Calloc is contiguous memory allocation which we are doing in the multiple memory blocks. For you to understand, there are two things which you need to see in terms of difference. So one is in the Malloc, we are allocating the memory based on the number of bytes only, whereas here we are allocating the memory in terms of number of elements and also the size. So that's the first difference which we need to understand in order to understand the difference between and Calloc. So Malloc allocates the memory block of given size, and returns the pointer to the beginning. Whereas Calloc doesn't do that. Calloc allocates the memory and also initializes the memory block with 0. Second thing, as I said, in the Calloc, we are using number of blocks and size of each block defined in here, right? Whereas in Malloc, we are not defining the size of each block. We are only using the variable type to do that. And in the third difference would be that malloc is something which is pointed to memory. Otherwise, it will return null. Whereas calloc will actually return the values 0 when initialized to nothing. Alright. So is it clear to everyone? Are you guys able to hear? I think there is some internet issue on my part. Right guys, can you hear me? Can you hear me out, or is there an issue? Okay, you can hear me, right? So, Ramesh, did you hear the differences or do I need to repeat it again? Because I'm not sure if you understood this or not. I think there was a issue related to internet, but it got sorted. So I'm not sure if Ramesh could. Thank you so much, guys, for the responses. If you can let Ramesh and other people who had the doubt related to Calloc. Wonderful. So I believe you understood. So let's move further. Calloc is the function we are going to see now. So if you remember this program, this will help you understand the difference very well. That in here we have the malloc where we are defining the size of the variable of bytes, whereas in calloc we will be doing this with the help of size as well as the number of. So you understand we are using the n is equal to 3, total number of bytes will be 6. Whereas in calloc, which is now replacing it, we have and we have the size of int. So again, the problem which was there in malloc will be solved using the calloc, right? So here we will be able to replace this with the number of elements and size of that particular element. So what happens is when we declare this particular statement, if n is equal to 3, an integer in my system is taking 2 bytes, then total memory allocation will be 6 bytes. Alright? Is it clear? And that is what happens. Let's say n is something which we are taking as 3 again, as I said, size of integer is 2 and then it allocates the 2 bytes. You understand the difference in the memory allocation if you can see the diagram. That's the difference between Calloc and Malloc. And that is why we use Calloc for dynamic and contiguous allocation. Alright, understand this very clearly, so you will be able to understand what is the difference between Calloc and all. Okay, so let's move further. I think you are understanding. So what happens is Calloc will actually guarantee that it manages to allocate the memory, and it will also return the values with 0. Malloc will not have that such thing. So that's the difference in here. Then the next element which we are talking about is realloc. So what is the change? Same way we will compare it with malloc. So we have this malloc function in here, and we have the declaration of malloc. We 10 is equal to 5. So basically 10 bytes, because integer is 2 size, and this is how array would happen, right? What if now we want to use only two values after entering n is equal to 5? Because what happens is, I told you, dynamic memory allocation means we need to free up memory whenever it is required. Right guys, I think it's 11:11, and within 9 minutes we are finishing on the lecture. So this realloc and free, I'll keep it for the next lecture, and we will discuss it in proper detail so you understand. So let us revise quickly what we have done till today in this lecture. Started with the issue of memory allocation, right? So we are talking on array memory allocation in this lecture. We discussed on what are the issues related to memory allocation, that there is lot of wastage, and in order to solve that static memory allocation problems, we propose a dynamic memory allocation, right? So what is the solution? We came up with dynamic memory allocation, and we came up with four different functions: malloc, calloc, realloc, and free. Alright, is it clear till now, everyone? Everybody who has attended the, have you understood malloc and calloc clearly, or do you have any doubts in that? Any doubts related to malloc and calloc? We will be discussing realloc and free in the upcoming lecture. So what is malloc? Malloc is a function used to allocate memory block at the, alright. So we do the memory allocation using the pointer variable, and we need to include the standard lib.h file in order to use the malloc method or a function. And this is the prototype of the function, and this is the usage form in the program. Ankit, I will try to send. Already you are getting so much things in the group, so I suggest you guys can actually refer ED Technology. I last time showed you also that where you can get the material. I'll share every PPT there, because your group is already getting buzzed with 15, 20, 50 messages in a day. Now putting PPTs there would actually be too many of the students. So this is malloc. This is how you use the malloc. We have seen the example. I'll move forward to calloc definition. You can always refer the example of the malloc from the video, going to and fro. Now the problem with the malloc was the size, right? So we contiguous allocation, which is calloc. So it allocates multiple memory blocks at the runtime, and the same library file we have to add it. This is the prototype, different than the malloc. Malloc we were only defining the size. Here you are defining the element size and number of elements both. Only difference in the syntax of usage, the calloc syntax. Otherwise here also ptr is equal to ptr type star into the calloc, and we have seen a simple example of replacing malloc with the calloc also, right? So this is how it will look like. So that is you know it for the introduction of dynamic memory allocation. Again, we have discussed this in one of the earlier live lectures when we conducted the session for mu. So that is we will be continuing the same next lecture also. Most probably I will complete realloc and free. So then only the file system remains, and I'll try to put it there. If you have any doubts related to any of the earlier topics, please refer the channel. If you're not subscribed, do subscribe so that you can get to know I'm recording a lot of videos for the first year students. Okay, Parthiv, we are having float data type in Calloc, okay, and we enter 3 years n, okay, then we'll return the block of 3 into 4. Yes, correct. Okay, you're right, Parthiv there. So it will return the block of 3 into 4 just like this memory allocation which I am putting up onto the screen. So instead of 2 into 3, it will be 3 into 4. Alright, and 3 would be the number of side bytes will be 4. So horizontally you will have 4 bytes. I hope you understand the structure there. Sir, you can yeah, Palak, the file handling video is in the process. So in a day or two you will get it. Any other doubts, any other queries for any of the students? I hope you are referring the videos because I am taking a lot of time to record these videos. It is an issue, so uploading is also taking a toll. And I hope my videos are helping you in learning the C programming well. So as a part of support and token of appreciation, that's why I'm saying you can you know subscribe the channel so you can know more and more about the upcoming videos and all. Right, so I believe that is it for today's lecture. I'm wrapping up here, and if you have any doubts, you can quickly shoot it into the comments, just like Parthiv had a question. Otherwise, prepare for the next lecture. And the links are there. I think you have a break now, so you can quickly grab some snacks, have some breakfast, and do it. All right. Okay, I think it's clear for most of the people. As I said, if you have any doubts, you can scroll back to the video, see the further part. Thank you, Path. Thank you, Lisa. So, and I hope that you would refer the videos, practice as much as possible. Go online, code it, right? And please take care of yourself. Do not go outside. Do not play cricket in the corridor and anywhere. Stay safe, family. Next 6 days are strict lockdown, so please take care of yourself, right? I hope I will do everything possible to teach you, right? Making sure that all of you learn well. I'm coming up with more and more videos of interesting topics also, so that you can practice. And as I said earlier, please go online and learn in code.org for programming concept improvement to a great extent, right? So that will help improve your program a lot. Go to code.org. I've made up a videos